1573 by royal decree of Her Majesty. They were formed to take each town and take individuals who showed great skill with arms between the ages of 16 and 60 and form them as a national guard. So if you think England did not really have a standing army, she sort of did. It was a militia system. The trained band were an elite group. So by the mid-1570s, there were about 12,000 men under arms. At the time of the Armadas, there were nearly 90,000 trained band members. 62,000 were with Her Majesty at the encampment at Tilbury, where they were awaiting the Spanish landing. Unfortunately, it never occurred. Now, what you have before you here is not actually a cannon. This may sound a little strange. I'll explain. A cannon is one type of artillery. A cannon has a barrel nearly 9 to 10 feet long, a bore diameter of between 7 and 8 inches, and weighs nearly between 3.5 and 4 tons. What we have here is called a falconet. The falconet is a much smaller field piece, easily moved around on the battlefield, where a cannon would be used more for sieges and such. This one is actually a Drake version, meaning even a little bit smaller than normal. This is a 5-foot-long barrel, an 1 3/4 inch bore, and weighs about 180 pounds. Quick word on safety. When this weapon fires, it will make a bit of noise. I ask that you do not put your fingers in your ears. I don't mean to insult anyone here, but your heads are full of air. In order to equalize the pressure that this concussion will make, it is better to simply cup your ears and slightly open your mouth. Basically pretend you're a fish. Now, there are as you saw, as these folks were moving around, it's very important that all these folks move together. We have several different types of crew member here. We have the loader. The loader is the most important person on the gun crew. We then have the rammer. The rammer is the most important person on the gun crew. Then have the vent tender. The vent tender is the most important person on the gun crew. Followed by the powder handler. The powder handler is the most important person on the gun crew. We then have the bombardier, the person who sets off the gun. He is the most important person on the gun crew. And finally, we have the gun captain. She is the most important person on the gun crew. I think you're seeing a theme. Basically, it means that in order for this weapon to function properly, everyone must do their job perfectly and correctly. If they do not, someone will get injured or even killed. So, having said all of that, who would like to meet our Cannon Regina?
Aye!
Who would like to meet Regina?
Aye!
Captain, at your will!
We'll do it again.
Now, there are 21 steps in the loading and firing of this cannon. If we were firing shot. If we're only firing salutes, we reduce that actually to 12. The first is we'll have the vent tender tend the vent. Places a wetted thumb over the vent hole, and this will help create a vacuum in the barrel to extinguish any sparks. We'll then search the piece. The loader will take the worm, essentially a giant corkscrew, and fish it down the barrel to get any sort of debris that might be left over from the last shot out of the barrel. We'll then sponge the piece. The rammer is going to take the sponge, which has been wet, put that down the barrel. That'll help extinguish any sparks as well, and also as he pulls it out, because of the vacuum, it'll suck anything right out of the barrel. We then repeat these steps for safety. In combat, it would be a little different. You would just go as quick as you can. We'll demonstrate that in a moment.
The smell of
We'll
gunpowder.
have the powder handler handle a charge from the magazine. We're using tin foil for our cartridges, as this is another safety feature. Normally, in period, it would be a linen bag. She'll then advance the charge, handing it off to the loader. The loader will then lay the charge, placing it gingerly at the end of the barrel. The rammer will then ram home the charge, using the rammer to seat the cartridge at the breech. He will then give it 3 good strokes. Make sure everything's good and tight. Now, if we're going to load a shot, which we are not today, we would have our choice of a solid ball made of stone, lead, or most common iron. Or if things were getting a little dicey, our enemy were very close, we would then use what's called grape shot. Grape shot is essentially a bag full of smaller bullets that, when fired, the bag disintegrates, those bullets spread out, and you turn this cannon into a giant shotgun. But we're not doing that today, so we'll move on. Our vent tender will prick and prime. He'll use a copper pricker to open the cartridge, and then pour a small amount of fine gunpowder down the barrel that, when ignited, will set off the main charge. Then the bombardier will advance the linstock, and at this point we are nearly ready to fire. So assume your position. Prepare to give fire! Give fire! Now, just like our musketeers, and if you want to see about that, we'll be over at the encampment a little later. Just like our musketeers, a good artillery crew is expected to be able to perform all those steps 2 to 3 times in a minute. Now, obviously, they can't do that while I'm standing here giving them each and every little command. Therefore, our gun captain takes over, and her job gets very simple. All she needs say is,
"Gunners, to your peak and make ready!"
Now imagine for a moment you yourselves are on the battlefield. You're staring out across the field at armored pikemen, musketeers, cavalry, whose horses are just pulling at the bit, waiting to go. And you're standing there waiting for the appointed hour of the battle to begin, because this is how it was done in the 16th century. Your commander might be waiting for his breakfast to settle and doesn't want to fight yet. However, that hour comes, that time comes. All hell is going to break loose. Musketeers will be firing salvos at you. Pikemen will be advancing steadily, shouting their war cries. Cavalry are charging to and fro. You are no longer performing this drill for precision, because your lives depend on it. You are essentially doing this drill no longer for precision, as I said. You are doing it for survival. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attention. If you have any questions or would simply like a closer look, the gun will be ready in a few moments. We'll meet you actually right over by that little catapult there. If you'd have any further questions, just want to take a closer look at the gun. I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you.